Out of all the puzzles I've designed and printed on this channel, this puzzle egg from 2020 has become a personal favourite. It's a cylindrical take on the famous 15 puzzle designed back in the 1800s, but with a twist. Literally. I'm a massive fidgeter, so since then, one of these eggs has lived on my desk where I casually twist and rearrange it into all sorts of patterns and then back again to its solved state. It's awesome for that. But it's honestly not that difficult of a puzzle. And I know some of you puzzle heads out there love a challenge. So I designed this. This monstrous sliding puzzle has no less than 30 moving pieces with a 5x5 grid of tiles wrapped around its surface. In this video, I'll show you how I designed it, how you can print one yourself, and then I'll try and solve it. Let's get started. To begin, I fired up the original puzzle egg design in Fusion 360 and quickly realized that past Angus didn't really do a great job at modeling this thing. There were tons of unnecessary bodies resulting from the multiple swept and resolved plane cuts, and simply adding in a few more pieces and calling it a day was not an option. So I scrolled back the timeline and painfully hit the delete button. The core of the puzzle are these odd-shaped dovetail centerpieces which guide the matching egg segments up and down the slightly twisted path. Expanding the complexity to 5 pieces meant that the size had to be increased ever so slightly, and it's quite a dense mechanism, I'll admit, but it's comfortable enough to hold and manipulate. The original egg puzzle used 6mm diameter by 3mm deep rare earth magnets to provide the indexing motion so critical to this design. But magnet prices have skyrocketed since the start of the pandemic, and I did try to use smaller ones initially, but alas, magnets are actually quite weak at resisting sliding forces, and they just didn't feel nice. Quick tip, by the way, if you're ever designing holes for magnets or any other inserted objects, chuck a slot on its edge to give it some room to deform a bit, because every 3D printer is different and it's pretty much impossible to nail interference clearances in every circumstance. I use my trusty Ender 3 with Direct Drive mod for most pieces, and the bores range from a little bit tight to a little bit loose. But the magnets don't seem to pull out once everything's assembled, so I didn't really have to use any glue. To give your fingers something to grab onto and for that visual flair, every piece has this indented front surface detail that was quite hacky to pull off. But I'll show you how, just in case you want to do something similar. First, you select the surface workspace, and then you offset the front and side surfaces by the amount you want. I think I did about 2mm here. Next, you select just the front surface and thicken that outwards, and then finally use the combine tool to Boolean difference the thickened piece away from the puzzle piece, and bam, a nice aesthetic surface detail. Simple, right? For this larger egg, however, I did quickly realize that the middle pieces are very similar in size and could easily be mistaken for each other while you're trying to solve it, which would make it a little bit too challenging. So I added this additional swept detail to create a line that only lines up when the pieces are in the right order. To secure the top and bottom to the central shaft, there's 5 little notches that seat down into paths before twisting securely into place. I prefer to do this sort of thing rather than threads because I find it to be a little bit more dimensionally accurate. Depending on your printer, they may seat really firmly or they might be a little bit loose, in which case you might just want to drop or two of super glue to firmly lock them in place. All of the parts are designed to print without supports or brims, except maybe the shaft, you might need a brim for that. But as always, a good first layer with high bed adhesion is critical for success, as some of the first layer cross sections, they're very small indeed. Assembly is pretty straightforward, but take your time inserting the magnets. Each layer only needs the full 5 magnets on one side, with the other having just one single magnet to index between the positions. I maintain polarity by placing them on top of each other and then pressing them into position on each of the inserts. And remember that the outer surfaces don't need any magnets, so don't waste your time there. Before you print anything, you need to figure out what colors will work well. The original version I used all these polyalchemy colors and it's pretty garish. But with the final version, I went with a mashup of the original egg, so I've got this lovely pastel pink and blue mixed with the white and the silver, and then there's this interesting brown, and the insert piece is a nice bright gold, so you're not going to miss it. Double check each layer, and once you get to layer 3, decide which color you want to have the removable insert, because you cannot forget it. Without having the insert here that you can actually, remove, there's no way to give a space for the pieces to slide around in. Assuming your 3D printer is dialed in, movement should be fairly smooth, but the pieces can still kind of catch on each other from time to time. But don't be afraid to be a little bit rough with it till it wears in. I didn't need this for mine, but a tiny bit of lithium spray works wonders if your sliding surfaces have just a bit too much resistance. But again, you're unlikely to need it if your 3D printer is dialed in. And there it is, the 5x5 egg puzzle. I've already scrambled mine, so that although the pieces are in the correct layer, the colors don't line up. So now I guess it's time to attempt to solve my own creation. Let's start the timer. All right, so here we have the egg puzzle. I've scrambled it already, but I have layered it so that the shape's correct, but all the colors are wrong. And I have noted down that I know the order of the colors. It goes silver, blue, brown, pink, white. So in that order, I know in a clockwise direction. But other than that, yeah, this is the first time solving the 5x5 Maker's Muse egg puzzle. It may take a while. I'm not an expert at these, even though I like to design them. So here we go. You see what I mean with the middle pieces looking like they almost line up, but they don't quite, so that's actually wrong, but that's actually correct. So that's why that other spiral has to line up for them to be in the right spot. Two layers done, now I've got to do the third. Remember, one of the pieces is missing because that's the insert. Okay, getting pretty close. The fourth layer, as you get to the top, this is where it starts being really difficult to shuffle stuff around. There's a few things out of place. I think we can get it maybe in 10 minutes. This is usually where I take the longest though, because I really don't know the algorithms that you need for this sort of thing. I'm not an expert. I keep doing it the wrong way. I keep swapping them backwards. I do not know what I'm doing. Just these two keep swapping. I keep doing it wrong. Finally did it. Oh dear. Alright. There she is. So about 12 minutes. Not too bad for like 12 minutes of constantly frantically scrambling. Pretty difficult for me anyway. Probably easier for you guys if you know how to solve these sort of things. I'm going to make a few small tweaks to the design. It's jamming up just a bit too much where the chamfers are. I'm going to make them a bit bigger for the final release. And I'm probably going to put some little lines around the bottom so you don't have to remember the colors. It'll just be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in terms of the lines, and that'll help you remember it. But otherwise, yeah, pretty fun. A bit more frustrating than the little one, which is more of a fidget toy, but definitely a lot more rewarding. You can find links to print this puzzle in the description below. It's a few bucks, which I think is pretty fair considering how complex the design process is, but the original 3x3 versions are totally free. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.